Hi everyone. Today we have with us Devaiah. Devaiah was the head writer at All India Bakchod at AIB, that brilliant collective of comedy that was so far ahead of its time that even today we look at your videos and go, laughing over our heads. And now he's the co-founder of Moonshot, which is the agency behind all the iconic campaigns from Cred to Boldcare to Swiggy getting someone to order Juhi Chawla off their app, and a lot of other things in the middle, from Super DAO to all things small. I'll spare you the entire LinkedIn profile, but the biggest claim to fame is Devaiah is a fan of The Whole Truth since we were born, and that's how we met. And since it's very expensive to get Tanmay on a podcast,
he used the coupon code to get me.
Devaiah, because I am very, very, first of all, thank you so much for making the time. I know you're splitting your time between Dubai and Bombay now, which makes this even more special that you found the time for this. And the intent of this podcast, and God knows there are enough podcasts, another one perhaps is not needed. The intent here is to keep it very focused on marketing. And hence, I always start by asking my guests, what is marketing?
I think marketing, strangely enough, I read this in engineering. In engineering, we had one optional subject called marketing management. I don't know why they decided
Yeah. I remember that book also. Kotler was part of the, jisko I believe jalana chahiye at the altar.
Yeah. I think wherever they hear the word marketing, they'll subscribe that book. So I think, there maybe I read this definition. I don't know where, or maybe on the internet, but it kind of stuck to me. Makes a lot of sense. It's like the method of creating demand. All right?
Yes.
So now that varies. Now, if your product is so good, that is the demand.
Yeah.
You don't need any marketing.
Yeah.
There's a very nice talk by Kunal Shah from 2015 or 16. You can look it up on the internet, on YouTube, if it's still there, where he talks about this Delta 4 principle.
Yes.
So, where, if you find a truly revolutionary product, which is brag-worthy, which after using you cannot go back to using anything else, it doesn't need marketing.
Like ChatGPT, for example.
ChatGPT, Uber, Google search engine.
Yeah.
They hardly, like Apple.
Yeah.
None of these guys, hardly advertise.
Yeah.
So because I think the demand is there.
Yeah.
But for anything else, I think you need marketing to sort of build that demand or create that demand.
So would it be fair to say that marketers always get briefs to sell average products?
Or there are many good products, and then you need to kind of stand out. Or sometimes I think there are no products. It's just a package, right? And then you need to stand out.
I pulled the question to its extreme. It was an exaggeration, but it is true that in most markets, like in everything in life, a bell curve plays out that 80% of what's on offer is bang in the middle, around the average.
Sure.
And there are 10% outliers on this side and 10% outliers on this side. And what you're saying is that if you're a 10% outlier on the right extreme, then you don't need too much marketing. But you also said it's the process of demand creation. There too, there is a fine distinction, right? Like there are products which create demand out of thin air. This is something that I didn't even know I needed, and someone came and solved it for me, and now demand got generated, versus capturing a share of the demand which is already there, right? Like you could argue that like another salt brand will come and take market share from other salt brands. They are not going to create new demand for having salt. But I don't know, if you launch, like before Airbnb happened or before Uber happened, these were like category defining situations. How do you think of marketing differently for these two situations?
Are you foreshadowing Old Truth launching salt?
Eventually.
At Shashank trying to get some quick freelance out of me without paying.
No. That I've already that arbitrage I've extracted by having you.
But yeah, I mean that's very true. So I think I think it kind of goes into the second thing that we're discussing, is that art or science, right?
Yeah.
I think when marketing is created, it is art, all right? And then when the playbook is made, it becomes science, all right?
Say more.
So basically when you create something and it becomes successful, and then people analyze it and make a playbook and then try to use the same template to build something. Now it works. It works, like you're saying, if it's a salt product, if there's a new salt coming into the market, if you use the same playbook, you will capture some amount of traction by doing what someone has successfully done before. But if you want to truly sort of disrupt in the salt business, but your product is not disruptive, but your messaging should be disruptive, then it becomes pure art. Right, where you have to completely go crazy. Where you have to destroy the playbook. You have to disrupt the playbook. Right. So I think it lies over there.
So when you get a brief to create advertising for any product, do you also first create your own personal opinion on ये product disruptive है, me too है, this is a similar thing, and then does that inform how you approach the brief?
100%. Because see, first is I ask myself, why would I use this product if I have not been using it, or why would I switch? And the answer is very clear, right? You will immediately know if you're going to switch to this, or if you're if you're already using some other brand, you won't switch to it. So then it kind of becomes it's like this. I feel whenever I'm working on a piece of content, all right, it could be like a LinkedIn post, it could be an ad, it could have been like a YouTube sketch. One thing that my always trained us is when you create this piece of content, if you think of an idea, you create an idea, imagine it's created, and then you hit the share button on it. What would you say while sharing it? All right, and if that becomes a problem, right? If I think of an idea and if the team is like, okay, this is the idea, then my first reaction is, okay, if this idea is made, someone's hitting the share button, what would they say while they're sharing it? Or what will they say when they're commenting it?
And if that's too complicated or too long or too roundabout, then you know that you don't have a sharp thing.
You don't have a sharp thing
on your hands.
So then you have to do things, and it's the same for the product, right? What would I say if I'm recommending this product to someone, right? And if you don't have that, but then you still have to go ahead and do something, then you have to be totally crazy about it. So it should be the comment, the share would have been, oh my God, I did not see that coming. Right? It's January 2025 and what did I just see? Right? Then you have to optimize your ideas towards something like that. For
and in that case, the job of the agency for you is, I'm going to make sure that somehow I'm going to grab the viewer by the balls and get them to pay attention to this thing.
100%.
After that, most probably as funnels go, because I'm going to grab so many eyeballs, a certain number will convert and try it. And after that, it's up to the product. If you guys are no good, I can't do anything about it. But is that clarity there with the client, or is the client expecting some other miracle to happen?
No, I think, see, right now, clients are, they have enough data, right? And they know what they want when they're coming to you. So they know, okay, we have a great product, or we have a great whatever XYZ. It could be a great product or great distribution, or we have a supply chain where we can plug this and make it successful. But right now I want eyeballs of this. That's all of advertising, right? You just want eyeballs on what you're doing. And then after that, if people are not converting, then it is not an advertising problem. So clients are aware when they come, when they're, I think, briefing any agency, what they want is attention to their message.
And that, the more I talk to marketers today, people are clear that the first big problem is there's so much clutter that just getting you to see my message is actually the problem. Then we'll worry about whether it was strategic, it was right, most advertising just gets lost in the clutter because there is just so much happening. I was talking to a Unilever marketer 30 years ago. It was only the big FMCG guys who used to advertise. Today, whole new categories, इंश्योरेंस वाला भी इमोशनल करके तुम्हारे को बेच रहा है, फाइनेंशियल सर्विसेज वाला भी बेच रहा है, गाड़ी भी बेच रहा है. द नंबर ऑफ कैटेगरीज बीइंग एडवर्टाइज्ड इज जस्ट टेकन अप क्लटर सो मच दैट इफ यू डोंट ब्रेक इट देन बाकी तो बाद में देखेंगे. बट इट्स ऑल्सो वन ऑफ द क्रिटिक्स ऑफ न्यू एज एजेंसीज लाइक योर्स दैट आई हियर दैट दे आर वेरी गुड एट grabbing eyeballs, but then it's just I don't even know which brand's ad I saw. It was just just great. I had great fun watching it, but I don't know, they're not building any they're memorable, but they don't build memory structures. Like I've heard this about the cred ads a lot, that बहुत अच्छी ads थी, मजा आ गया देख के, but इसमें cred क्या था, right? How do you think about that critique?
See, I think it's fair to analyze that, but how I look at it is, if we work on a particular project for a client and they come back to us again, it means they were successful, right?
Correct.
They will not come back to you just because of some relationship or if things are going viral and nothing is moving at their end.
Yeah.
For example, with Cred, I think we've done about 21 films for them over the last 4 years. Make My Trip or any other brand that we worked with. Shark Tank, we did a few seasons. Make My Trip, Me Show, like, I can name it. So people keep coming back. The same brands.
Which means obviously
it's working.
It's serving some business objective, otherwise they won't keep spending money.
100%. Yeah, they won't do it.
Yeah.
But coming back to the original question of like being interesting or being truly disruptive. See, I think what happened, like you pointed out in the 2000s, early till the internet disruption happened, it was mostly push advertising.
Yeah.
All right, you were forced to sit and watch an ad.
Yeah.
So you did not have to be interesting. You could just be a presentation in movie format. All right, and it would work. Why? Because everyone was forced to sit and watch it. During a match, like you didn't have a phone also to get distracted by. You were between overs, you never changed channels and you did not get distracted.
Yeah.
So you saw a boring ad, but you saw it 5 times, it worked.
It worked. Yeah.
Right? So then what happened, and people back then that was working, so they didn't have to risk it. Right? They didn't have to risk something to be crazy interesting, because see, when you have to do anything risky, it also involves a certain amount of accountability on the client side, which they might not be willing to take, rightfully so, right? Because if you're for example, if you're a CMO of a big company and and everything is going well, why would you want, though you might be bored of it and that this is maybe not what the brand should be saying, you will not risk it, because tomorrow if it doesn't go well, your job's on the line, right? Like I wouldn't do it as well, right? It's not like the creator versus suit thing, but even you won't do it. No one's brave enough to do that. So, so it was working well that way. But right now, you have to be interesting. You have to be, you have to grab the eyeballs.
Agree.
You cannot be, the excuse can't be that like, I'm strategic, but I'm not.
But I'm boring.
All right. So the interesting aspect is a baseline.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And then your strategy comes in.
Yeah.
Because of just how the
viewing is on demand.
Correct. And the attention economy is all over the place. The same reason why, for example, you used to see a lot of emotional ads. Brands were being built on emotions in the early 2010s up to 2014-15. Why? Because for an emotional ad to work with a product plug in the end and for it to not seem addy, you needed about 30 seconds of investment before.
Of storytelling. Arc.
Yeah, you needed an arc, you needed to get invested in a character.
Yeah.
And some beautiful pieces of work has been. I think Tanishq, there's creative director Rajesh Ramswamy at Lowlintas back then, smashed it. I mean, beautiful work. Like, there was a whole team like Tanish, Rajesh, Ramsam, Adarsh, who's now heading Tilt. All these guys, such amazing emotional work. They built so many brands on the back of it. For example, what Ogilvy did with Cadbury.
That ad just was playing in my head when you were talking.
So you needed certain amount of airtime and for it to be played, for you to get emotionally invested.
And the guarantee that I'm going to watch to the end because I'm not going anywhere. Yeah.
But right now what has happened is because the memory structures and also the attention deficit economy that we're living in, you need to be interesting. Unfortunately, fortunately, you need to be like really funny. You need to ensure that in 3-4 seconds some crazy shit happens, so people are like, oh, okay, wait, what happened here? Let me see what is happening now. You don't have that investment time that was left behind, right? So boring or like even being very monotonous uniform for a 30th second payoff won't work.
I part agree, but I have a doubt also that whenever someone tells me that there's a lot of attention deficit, we don't even stop for half a second on a photograph on Instagram, etc. People don't read nowadays, which is true. I also see adolescence drops and people drop everything, and for 6 hours they watch it from front to back. It's an emotional drama. So it doesn't seem like attention span ka problem hai. It seems like my bar for what interests me, creative work, in the post Netflix world has just been risen so high that now my definition of boring is the bar is much higher than it was 20 years ago. But if you give me something that crosses that bar, I will drop everything over a weekend and watch it for 12 hours straight. So time की कमी नहीं है. I am actually consuming more content than I used to in the past, right? So how do you reconcile these two things? So if good storytelling still works, but the definition of good, it seems, has changed.
I think it's an outlier. Like adolescence, you will hear one thing pop in a year. All right. So one is that, and then the second is two different formats. I'm talking about advertising. Advertising, you're interrupting people. All right. There's no heroic glory over here. Yeah. You're basically interrupting people's lives.
Yeah.
So you might invest in a story like Adolescence, which is, I mean, craft-wise, I think one of the finest pieces to have been made, I think, in the last 10 years. For you to, the way they've done it, people should watch it, and then when you realize the whole thing is one take.
One take is like blows your mind,
yeah. And I think that is sort of an outlier, because even if you look at all the shows that, get talked about, right, it's like usually like thrillers. Okay.
No, but overall, while I agree with you, format difference, I agree, but White Lotus season 3 comes, I will spend 3-4 hours watching 3-4, which is longer than any movie that I watch. So I do pull out time for good, well-produced storytelling. But yeah, that is appointment. Like I have chosen to watch it, unlike an ad. That I agree. And hence, the bar for ad is even higher. Interrupt kar rahe ho, bloody show me something really good. Otherwise, I'll go watch my White Lotus. Right? Like, why am I here watching you?
But I also feel even in the long form category, right? When you if you speak to people who are creating over there, they will tell you how their feedback is that dictated, right? Because you need to have a hook at this particular point. You need to sort of, even if you're watching, say, a Fauda, all right, or even if you're watching like some drama-based show, the feedbacking on any of these OTT platforms are crazier compared to advertising. All right. So they'll be like, okay, there has to be like a foreshadowing in the first part. There has to be a hook in the second part. Then at the third part, this should happen. So because they have so much data that they've gathered, that sometimes the feedbacking there is crazy almost.
So is it because at a human biological level, our need for dopamine hits has just gone up, like frequency pe is so much higher that even in long form, you're saying maybe as a layman we are not noticing it. But they are having to deliver punch after punch after punch after punch.
There's a reason why also, say, true crime became very big, right? Because it is thriller at its core, right? You want to know what happened next.
Yeah.
So I feel overall the content game has definitely shifted because of lower attention spans for sure.
But don't you think isn't it also true that whenever any pendulum gets swung to one side, the opposite side becomes an opportunity. Right? So, ab itna fast cut ho raha hai ki maybe there is coming a time where, right, long form emotional storytelling will come back and.
Yeah. Like I'll tell you, like what my bet is that right now rock is out as a genre in in music.
Yeah.
Why? Because there's also financial there's a financial incentivization against being a rock musician. You have to split 5 ways. All right. Earlier there was no not enough tech for you to replace your drummer.
Yeah.
All right. Today, the guy who's singer-songwriter or the woman who's singer-songwriter, she can program all instruments, literally on a laptop.
Yeah.
And then second, for a rock band to travel, it's very expensive.
Yeah.
To set up a rock gig is also expensive because you're pretty much 5-6 people, so many instruments.
Yeah.
As opposed to one person coming in, tune it up to them, easy to travel, logistically also easy, and even that person doesn't have to split it some 6-7 ways, right? So that kind of spawned this whole thing. Now I feel now rock is kind of like in the 2000s when we were growing up, it was only rock bands, right?
Correct, yeah.
And rap and everything was underground, right? And then now it shifted. So it's always going to be the pendulum keeps.
One thing will become big, and then the opposite will become novel, and that will come in. And that also actually, it's interesting that you were a comedian, a comedic writer at least before you were a copywriter at agencies also. Tanmay, a lot of comedians are becoming ad people. Is this linked that comedians basically inherently know how to grab attention? So, and what does that mean for the agency model of yore, which was because the skill in which people were trained, the copywriting skill was actually born out of newspapers, right? Like the iconic copy would be newspapers are dead. No one's writing for that, right?
That's the glory. The glory was that, like, could you crack like a beautiful headline
for
where it's plastered all over the city and next day in the newspaper.
Yeah. So, how do you see I'm now moving to Moonshot. To me, represents a new age agency, right? Which both in the talent that it brings and actually the purpose that it serves inside a brand's ecosystem is very different from the Ogilvys of the world. How would you compare and contrast a Moonshot versus a Ogilvy? What was their role and their skill, and what is your role and your skill?
See, firstly, I think Ogilvy is still one of the best agencies in the country, even in terms of coming up with ideas and advertising content, even today, hands down. Like, there is Ogilvy and then there's the rest of the industry, then there are indies. So I feel, it comes a complete baseline effect is that it's a creative business.
Yeah.
All right. So you need to have the best creative people. You need to attract the best creative people. And once you attract the best creative people, they need to be supremely well paid. Money and validation needs to go to the creative people.
Yeah.
Now, till 2014, 2013, there was no other outlet if you were a writer.
Yeah.
I could, in 2008, I could have become a journalist or I could have become a copywriter. There was nothing else. I couldn't, like the movie, shows, nothing was structured, right? It was just looked like a big struggle. Right now, you get out of college, if you're a writer, you can join a comedian, you can join a creator, you can join like an internet company, you can even start writing web series right from day one if you get into a good writing room. So the talent has options. And the second thing is the business model, right? Like, if 100 rupees is being paid to an agency, you can't have like 60-70 rupees go to like, servicing, management, all the other designations. And then the last 10-20 coming to like the person creating,
doing the creative work.
Person doing the creative work. Yeah. It's like, like if a celebrity was getting paid, the agents get paid maybe 10-15% and then celebrity gets 90%. Now it's reversed. Like, the management is getting paid 90% and celeb is getting paid 10%, right? So I feel that has happened to a large extent. And also, advertising agencies, I think, were previously designed in terms of their structure before WhatsApp and even before WhatsApp groups came in. Yeah. So you needed a lot of people to coordinate a lot of things, all right? And in the early 90s, there's no telephone also probably, right? So there were no mobile phones, right? So you needed like a lot of functions, to align a lot of other functions for you to have a meeting and sell stuff. But now after WhatsApp group came in, WhatsApp groups started, everyone's on the same
brand manager से मैं बात कर लूँगा मेरे को बीच में servicing वाले की क्या ज़रूरत है
right. So I think it will take some time for them to figure out how to restructure this whole thing efficiently so that more money is going into like the hands of the creative people. So one is money, and then obviously second is validation, right? I think all creative people more than money, I feel what is most important? Credit and validation. And validation is a drug, right? So once you get it, you want it more, and then once you want it more, which is a great place to be because then you want to keep doing quality work because you're going to get validated and you go into that loop. So I feel those two things are missing in like a big agency setup. For those reasons, I feel like independent agencies have been doing
Is it also that the big agency setup was made for the big company setup, right? Like the servicing guy back at Unilever, his or her job was to navigate the bloody complex system. वहाँ पे 4 decision maker हैं, पता नहीं कौन decision maker है, सबसे align करना, make sure करना that the brief that I'm giving back to my creative team is 100% rock solid. This is not going to change because the category manager woke up and said my brand manager's brief was incorrect, I'm going to change it. So there's a lot of servicing required in large structures, which is not required. Like if you and I work together, it's you and I working together. Like there is no one else above me who's going to change my brief and do this. Is that also a reason why there was so much flab in the system?
That is definitely one reason. I feel the other reason also is that like say for example in an agency, I lost my train of thought. Okay, got it. Come back. So essentially, what happens is, say in the 2000s, all right, pre 2015, pre like internet and the old school agency days, as a copywriter in a big agency, I just needed to master 3 things. I needed to master how to write good ad films.
Yeah.
All right. I needed to master how to write print ad.
Yeah.
I needed to master how to write radio. All right. So any big brief that landed on the table for any big client had just these 3 things that you needed.
Yeah.
Now what has happened? You have like, it's just these 3 services are not enough for you to sustain. So now you have about like, you need to offer like about 15 creative services, which any agency cannot sort of have those 15 creative services under one team, you know, to manage it. So that is why, like, say, for example, for maybe films, they feel, okay, like a Moonshot can do much better advertising film, so let's go to them. Like, we don't do any print, we don't do any radio.
Yeah.
So I think the specializations have become more sharper, and agencies are being born out of these specializations.
But uska ek bahut bada problem hai, right? Like, if as a brand I go for print to someone and radio to relevant names, but video to someone and audio to someone else, how do I maintain consistency across the brand? That used to be the main job of the, you know, when I was in Unilever, actually it was a joke which was reality, that the brand manager changed every 2 years. But the guy servicing us on the other side was on the brand for 10 years. So actually our agency partner knew the brand better than the brand manager did, right? And they held the ground on what's core to the brand, what we say, what we don't say across mediums, right? If this happens, then where does consistency for brands land?
I think that is a shift that has happened where because of this reason, like there's no one umbrella where one place where you can go get your needs service. You have to go to many places. So brands, I think now there'll be a change where it's already started where within the brands there's a change in structure. Brands have in-house creative directors.
Yes.
They have in-house creative strategists for this exact reason. So that, like, say if, I'm just giving an example, like say Moonshot is working on a film and then they crack a film idea. For that film idea to become print, outdoor, everything, there is a creative person in the brand's end who's holding everything together. So that responsibility has shifted.
Yes.
And also because it's not like that anymore on the agency side, right? Because people are quitting every now and then, so you can't have more ownership on that side.
Yeah.
So that's what I've noticed with most of these new age brands.
No, that's a very fair point, which, like, if, and a lot of our viewers, I think, are young brand managers who are trying to figure this out. Like, initially, I never used to understand that brand manager ka kaam kya hota hai, because it's like media buying is done by an agency, ad making is done by an agency, outdoor is done by another agency. What the hell is your job, right? And I was in the first podcast I did was with my Unilever boss, and he said the job of the brand manager is to be the voice of the consumer. Your job is to go and figure out the consumer ko kya chahiye, and then figure out give the brief that brings it out in a creative way. So the strat at a very high level used to sit with the brand manager. What you're saying is now even the creative strat and holding the creative bar has come in-house. And then for the specific skill of how does this become a banger video, how does this become a great outdoor campaign, you go to specific agencies who specialize in that skill. And but it's your job then to make sure that these are, if you've done an outdoor campaign and a video, that they speak to each other, they're the same.
Like, I'll give you an example. I think, we work with some really, really talented folk from the client side. And I'm not just saying this to be nice to my clients or whatever. But like, say, for example, let's take Swiggy.
Yeah.
All right. Has Mayur Holla over.
Yeah, I know.
Right. So Mayur is an ex-NCD CCO at an agency. Writer who's done the agency life for about 15-16 years, right at the top.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. And then he moved. We did like a Subway campaign when he was a CMO of Subway, and then he moved to Swiggy. Now we're working with him on Swiggy. So he's a creative guy.
Yeah.
All right. And he's on the other side as a head of brand.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So now he completely understands like the whole the tree,
the full spectrum.
The full spectrum, right? So, and it's also so much better when he can, like, sometimes you just take 3 ads. So if say for example when you're working with people like that, one, you don't have to sell too much because they can see through your bullshit, right? Like, he's like, I did this for 15-17 years, so I can see through this. So, and then there's also no pressure that he's they are going to pick the wrong idea because they understand, like, so even if I don't have to go with 6 ideas to make sure these 2 get picked. Go with 2, they'll pick the best
agency
one.
method doesn't have to be applied. That first present the 3 shit ideas.
Correct. So super smart. Like say for example the Boldcare team, like Rahul, who's the CMO there. I think he goes more viral on Twitter than any of the people managing his business. All right. So he's always putting out banger tweets. Then he'll come up with some random idea. I think 6 months ago he gave his credit card number. All right. And he said anyone who wants to buy anything up to 5,000, I'm forgetting the semantics of it, but up to 5,000 can use my credit card number and, can put this on. And then it just went boom viral on
What was the catch?
There was no catch. He would just be like, okay, I got this OTP. And then he would tweet that. All right. And the people would keep putting that. So just see like how he's understood the attention economy and how he's understood to get eyeballs. Yeah. All right. And just the same, like how now when you're pitching to people like this, right, they already understand the game. So become easier. So like I just to come back to this, I feel the creative strategy and like the creative vision, I feel has shifted to the client side where they have like some supremely talented folks to sort of bridge everything and put everything together harmoniously.
On that note, you've had the privilege of working through Moonshot with big companies, large old big companies, and with a lot of the coolest startups. Tell me, how do those 2 clients compare and contrast?
Actually, there is no comparison over there. A smart person exists at both ends, and dumb people also exist at both ends. So I don't think, honestly, there is so much of a change. Of course, there is a change. I'll come to the change. Change is, so when a founder is involved in the marketing plan, and then the founder is giving the push, right? It goes a long way. In sort of, there are less layers.
Yeah.
Okay, so for example, if both of us are working together, I can just call you up and I can be like, hey, what is it? But if, for example, if it's a more legacy-driven company, I may not have that equation where I can call up the owner of the company and be like, what do you think of this? Because if you are trying to pitch something high risk and you're very sure of it, and so many times you cannot justify, like it's your gut saying this is going to do well. Now I cannot justify it in very factual terms, like why I feel this is going to do well, right? Yeah. So when you have ideas like that, then like having a founder support is super critical. But when you have an idea like that and you want to sort of pitch it up the chain, it becomes a little bit of a problem. But having said that, like, for example, Make My Trip. All right. I never thought like, Make My Trip will be, I mean, I don't know, like my perception was because such a big client.
Yeah.
I was a little scared, initially, like, to work because I'm like, okay, will I be having to encounter so many layers? But I think there are 4 people there. And I feel all 4 are entrepreneurs.
Nice.
All right. So I think the Make My Trip, like the marketing team is like working with 4 founders. All right. But like sometimes I feel like if I'm working with like with a startup, I sometimes feel there are more layers and like more barriers. So I feel I think people exist at both ends, but I think only with the startup ecosystem, because there's more with the founders, there's more of an equation.
Yeah.
So riskier ideas can get executed, and also definitely age helps. So if you're a young brand catering to young folk as your TG, and you yourself are part of that TG, living that TG, or having a very first principles approach with that TG, it becomes easy, for you to understand why a particular piece of communication will do well and buy into more interesting things and take that little risk.
Yeah. 2 questions from that. One is, I used to feel, again, back in the big company days, that is it true that big company briefs have a lot of constraints because they have 3 strategic things that need to be done? In the past, we've done this, so we now can't do this. We must, have you felt that, or is it that self-selection happens, that the big company that comes to you actually is a risk-taking big company? They already know the kind of work that you do, and they should know that these guys will do a single-minded Bakchod campaign. They will not do. Do you find that?
Yeah, I think it helps because see, there's proof of work right now, right?
Yeah.
So what people do is, I think generally when they come to us, they know that they want to sort of, like blow up the playbook a little bit. So it helps. But I've also worked on the other side where, like, say, during my agency days, for example, was working on this one whiskey brand. All right. Now, when the brief came, one is you can't be truthful about whiskey in India because it's illegal. You can't sell whiskey.
Yeah.
So you're selling some arbit lifestyle.
Yeah.
And then in the brief, it is like two people have to take a bet. All right. And then one of them has to say a phrase. All right.
This is part of the brief.
Part of the brief. Okay. One of them has to say a phrase, and then they should, and then eventually they should become friends at the end of the bet. All right. And you're selling friendship. All right. In 30 seconds.
आपने लिखी थी.
Yeah. So you know, I always felt, you know, like the brief back then would be so specific. All right. Because they've done research. And they have seen past work.
Yeah.
And they've seen a pattern in past work that says, okay, every time there's been a bet in an ad, that's a hook for people to connect. And then a bet always ends with one person winning, but a bet between friends when one person wins, maybe the friendship becomes more informal and deeper.
Yeah.
All right. So they have that as a note. So it comes in like that. It used to come like that. I used to work on a lot of briefs like this. But I feel that is now like, you know, thankfully, people are more aware that, you know, with so many constraints, you can't come up with
which is what I meant. Like, I remember, you know, we need a 7 second out of a 30 second should be a product demo window, which has to happen like this. In the end frame, I need the brand to come in a specific way. This is in continuation. And that, I think, used to be a strength, that people used to think continuity a lot in big brands. That, you know, this ad is one in a long series of ads you've been running for 10 years. There's a certain way we've been building the brand, and this should just take that story forward. This is not just, you know, standalone, which was my second question, that I don't know all the brands that you worked with, but the iconic ones that come to my mind, your iconic ads, I would say that most of those brands are not meaning brands in themselves. Like, they don't, like, I don't know what Make My Trip in my head is my default travel booking app, but at a deeper level, does that brand stand for something? What does Cred stand for? What does Swiggy stand for? I actually don't know. Maybe they have an articulation, but as a consumer, I don't know, and hence perhaps, you know, humor works as a standalone device, that every time I'm just going to make something which is just going to, you know, grab you and go away. There is not this constraint of this brand has a certain meaning, and that meaning has to be carried forward every time. Do you think so, that most of the briefs that you take on are of this nature?
No, not really, actually. I sometimes feel good when the audience likes a piece of advertising, or like they found affinity towards a brand, but they don't know why they have that affinity to the brand. Which means like at like
that you've worked at a deeper level.
Which is like maybe not many people can articulate it. But I mean, I can tell you this. So even if you're doing, say, like humor, the way you would approach humor for, like, say, a Shark Tank would be completely different from where you approach any of the other ads. With maybe if you look at the Shark Tank work, there's always, I mean, second credit to the client, there's always this thing of punching up, all right, and calling out the bullshit in the system. All right, it has to have some amount of satire in it, which makes people realize something that, all right, business is the way for me to go forward. All right, so maybe if you line up the work, you could maybe spot it. But because obviously there's too much content these days, you would forget. Yeah.
And I think that would be the story of most consumers. Yeah. But that's the job of advertisers. Yeah. Like, we keep saying that magic isn't magic to the magician. Right? Like, the magician knows the logic behind the magic, but it feels like magic to the receiver. Yeah. So that's the job of advertising, which also brings me to, actually, I want to move to your creative process. Like, once you guys get a brief, how is it that Moonshot delivers what it delivers every time? Tell us about, like, take us behind the scenes and tell us about your creative process.
See, I think we have a very small team. All right.
Say more. Tell.
Yeah, it's just as Puneet, Deep, myself, Tanmay are like the core team.
Yeah.
The four of us have been working together for the last 10 years. All right. We were at AIB together, and we're here. And so what happens is there is a lot of shared context between all of us.
Yeah.
Right. So we don't have to explain to each other a lot. And also it helps that there is extreme amount of security among all of us, where we never really discuss whose idea it is. All right.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I was going to ask that. Is there rivalry? Like you are individual artists in yourselves.
Yes.
Is there rivalry, creative jealousy, etc.?
Yeah, there should be ideally, but I think it helps because we have so much we've done together
and been through.
Been through. And I know that, for example, the next 3 briefs, if I'm not good, like if my ideas are not making it, I'm not panicking saying that, oh, will Puneet, Deep and Tanmay judge me, saying that, oh, is this guy losing it? All right. Because I know the 4th one I will deliver. Right. So, and there is that amount of security. So that really helps in the team. So, so that is an important aspect of, working together, because I think in other places there will be.
But then how do you approach the brief? So let's say a client brief comes in, all 4 of you are individually capable of delivering on it. Do your own ideas, then jam together, or do you get into a room and jam? How does that work?
So I don't think we will be individually able to do the same good work that we would do together. It is not humanly possible.
Fair.
Because my strike rate might be, then every 5 briefs, maybe I will do a good ad. Right? So it's not possible. So you have to work together. I mean, our method is very simple. One is we don't take on too much work. All right. And what we do is when the brief comes in, we don't have an office also, so it's all on Zoom call. So we are basically, of course, we have other writers also now who we sort of work with on every brief. We pull someone in, work with them. But core is just the 3-4 of us. So what happens? The brief comes in, and then we are on Zoom call for about maybe 8-10 hours a day. And we take the brief. We ideally try and sit with a client and boil it down to like a 1-line, what's the problem statement, what we're trying to do. So once that is very clear, about 8 to 10 hours for about 7 to 8 days, it's just on calls, just cracking ideas. And everything that is thought of is written down. So at the end of 8 days, we'll have a document of like some 40 ideas, of which 30, maybe about 28 will be terrible, but it's on the dock. All right. So it will be very bad. And then we'll find maybe about 10 or 12 which are kind of there. And then we pick those 10, 12 to sort of write out the first drafts. So then the next 2 days goes about with, generally the first drafts are written by Deep and then Puneet. So they write out the first drafts and then...
Actually, it's not because you don't know kiska idea tha or you don't want
we don't know whose idea.
It's not as if ki ye 10-12 jin ke the, ab tum iska first draft.
No. But honestly, we don't even know, right? Because if you've cracked so many ideas in the last 8 days, you don't know, you can't...
And you are building on top of each other.
So and also so we take 1 day to select. So for example, then we go through each idea, and then all of us sit and then discuss why this idea is good and why this idea is bad. And then we keep contributing, and then now that if we find this idea good, and then now say we will give another 15 minutes to discuss that idea, and then we keep writing, okay, this can be a possible line, this can be a possible joke, this can be a possible way of ending it, and all that gets written. So then when we do this, we green it, or if it's green, then it means, okay, this is picked to the next round. So then we count the greens. It'll be about 10, 12. And then Deep and Puneet, they sort of sit. I think Deep writes usually the first drafts. And then Puneet then gets in. They're very good at dialogue writing. So they sort that out. And then, of course, then I sit with them, and then I'm the foreign eye, right? Like, so I'm not part of that writing process. So then I can come in and see objectively which is bad, which is good, leave notes. And then all of us sit together with the notes and then refine it further.
Got it.
And then, of course, there is Tanmay's point of view in itself, right? Like then for example, after all this, sometimes he'll be like, guys, the magic is not there. Then we start all over again.
And that comes from respect. You guys must have felt the magic. That's why you took it up.
100%. You get fooled, no, because it's your ideas. So you don't have a third person point of view on it, and you think that is good, right? So and sometimes Tanmay also will come, like sometimes we also tell Tanmay if there is an idea that is probably his, that it's not worth it. So I think that everyone realizes that a yes or no on an idea is a very powerful thing, and it cannot depend on whose yes it is and whose no it is.
Yeah.
So then we take it to the client and
got it. There was something you said in the previous answer that stayed with me, which was this, if my ideas are not good for 3 times, insecurity doesn't set in. I want to also understand, how do you keep yourself at a high creative level, right? Like, what is your own internal process? How are you working on your own self to be with the times and be a great comedic writer, a great writer? Why I'm also asking the question is, this debate of nature versus nurture, talent versus hard work is a big one in my head for creative folks especially, right? Because the popular picture that's painted is, sit in a cafe, smoke a joint, and epiphany hits, and then you write this masterpiece that changes the world, right? But whenever I read the autobiographies of creative people, it's got nothing to do with that. So I want to know from you, how do you keep yourself abreast of what's happening, and how do you keep upping your own talent game, and what part of it is talent, what part of it is hard work? And yeah,
it depends. I've seen naturally brilliant writers, who I feel don't put any effort but are so good. I feel, for example, Tanmay is one of them, right? Like, naturally just spontaneous, can come up with things out of thin air. And I'm not trying to be fake humility here or anything, but I am through hard work. Yeah. You can ask anyone, my moat is hard work. And I know this, I can prove it, because if it was only talent, then probably what I did 6, 7 or 10 years ago would be very good, right? And when I look at what I did, say 8 years ago, I sometimes am surprised, okay, that I managed that and I still kind of got here. So I know it is a lot of hard work, and that is great. Yeah. There's no, I don't feel ashamed to say I'm not naturally talented, or I don't have some inborn genius. And I also believe hard work will survive more than genius.
But I want to, I love that.
Sure.
Because I also, one of our values is hard work is the only hack. We really believe that, no matter where you start from, your slope of your curve is decided by hard work.
Yeah.
And, but one confuses, in really creative fields, it's easy to sit back and say, look at that genius, I can't be that. What does hard work, how do you become a better, humorous writer or writer in general through hard work?
See, one is putting in the hours, or there's no replacement for that.
Yeah.
I feel to answer your question as to what I'm keeping, what I do to sort of keep myself writing fit, is the fact that I'm working 8 hours a day. I know this is going a long way in basically I'm building my muscle, and I'm getting stronger hopefully every year.
Yeah.
Right? So it boils down to that, right? So for me, in terms of, again, coming back to maybe the security aspect of it, it depends on the atmosphere you're in.
Yeah.
I can work hard, but if I'm in an atmosphere where I'm judged every day, it can cripple me also. It can crush you. But thankfully, I work with people who, like I said, we are 4 of us who've known each other for 10 years. They've seen probably every foolish idea I've come up with, and I've seen the foolish ideas they've come up with. Right? Yeah. So you can't do anything to impress me, and I can't do anything to impress them.
Yeah.
So I think that helps. That surrounding, being in that situation helps. But for example, if you are a client, say, okay, for example, if you go to a gym, all right, would you pick an out of shape person as your personal trainer? You will not.
Yeah.
So for me, what I do is, even writing a Instagram update or a LinkedIn post, it has to go viral.
Yeah.
It has to hit plus 1,000 likes.
Yeah.
Even if it is on my personal page, if there is no expectation over there, that's my own expectation. So that is also practice for me. So I practice over there. And at times when I'm feeling a little low and underconfident about it's been 1-2 weeks, I'm not like, done anything great, I'll be like, okay, let me just go feel a little good about myself and go write a LinkedIn post that'll go viral. Or go write like something on Instagram that'll get like 1,000 shares. So,
like most showmen are vain by definition. Once you write this, are you also checking updates every
100%. And I live for that.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, if after I go write and if it bombs, like it might be an update,
screws your day.
It really ruins a little bit of me.
Yeah.
And I will be grumpy and I will tell, so in the writing team, see, also you want to flex a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. So the good thing is like, if I put something on the group saying that I'm going to write this on LinkedIn and it's going to go viral.
Yeah.
And then it actually goes viral. It's just a beautiful feeling.
Yeah.
Right? Because it was not by chance.
Yeah.
You designed it to make sure you could hack few minds to liking and interacting with that post. Right? So the vanity exists. It's all for the validation.
Yeah.
So I practice over there. And if I'm feeling low, I go kind of do that to feel a little better.
I love that answer. Thank you so much for being honest, because on both these things, that's been my personal experience also, that you can't enjoy the upside of being someone who knows how to get a clap out of people without caring for the claps.
Yeah.
Right? So these two, you can't be, हाँ मैंने लिख दिया मुझे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. नहीं, मुझे बहुत फर्क पड़ता है. And क्योंकि मुझे फर्क पड़ता है, I have spent, I'm not counted, but I spent the last 20 years and put in 20,000 hours into iterating and learning what gets the clap. How do I start the sentence? How do I finish it? The first line needs to be the hook in a LinkedIn post that gets you in. So you click read more and you go there, etc. I've done this because I know how to get a clap. Do you find that this is teachable though?
What do you mean teachable?
This craft of writing well. Do you find it's coachable and teachable, or is it more someone who had the hunger to, because you wanted that validation, you got yourself into the hardworking loop of, oh, this worked, this piece worked, this didn't work, this is what I learned, let me do this better and better and better. Can you teach this to someone else?
Yeah, I think if I've worked with a bunch of writers on a regular basis, I've always seen that, there are writers who get better and it means that they're learning. Yeah. And I see this at, like, say, a junior level as well, right? Someone with 2-3 years in the business.
Yeah.
When I first briefed them maybe a year ago to when I'm briefing them after a year, I see growth, right? So, but I think most of it has to be self-learned. Because you have to have that ability. No one's gonna waste their time to sit and tell you how to do things. So it is a combination of you being aware that you're failing.
Yeah.
All right. And then you acting on it. And then when you're in the room with other people who are doing something, having the curiosity to learn from there. And then go back and use that method and sort of putting that into play and then seeing if something new comes up is, I think, the trick. And a lot of, people sort of say that, this younger generation, they are like absolutely, they're not hardworking and all that. It's all true. Okay. But the things that they're interested in.
They are damn.
It's like, if they're interested in something.
Yeah.
See, I feel that it is this, they might not have like 5 things in their arsenal. They might not be developing 5 things in their arsenal, but they develop that one thing so obsessively that, I'm really surprised by the amount of writers we work with. And then when I was 21 or 22, like I couldn't even dream of doing half the things, this kid is doing.
Yeah.
Right. So
I think I've reflected on that a lot. Like you can see our team, a large part of the office is sub 24 years, right? Yeah. So, my hypothesis on this is this is the generation which perhaps is the first generation which very early on felt that I can do whatever I think I want to do in life without worrying about subsistence, that दो वक्त की रोटी कहाँ से मिलेगी, right? We were always taught, भैया पढ़ाई करो, उसके बिना you will be caught in the same middle class loop and you will not go anywhere else. So exploration starts a lot earlier. So going wide and सिनेमा का भी कुछ कोर्स कर रहा हूँ, स्विमिंग भी सीख रहा हूँ, हॉर्स राइडिंग भी कर रहा हूँ, तो 100 चीज़ें कर रहा हूँ. जिनका लग जाता है, at 12 years of age I understood that I love being behind the camera. वो जब 21 years of age पे इंटरव्यू देने आता है, वो 9 साल से कैमरा के पीछे लगा हुआ है, कुछ कर रहा है. He already has fucking 10,000 hours under his belt. Then you're like, भाई मतलब 21 साल पे मैं क्या कर रहा था और मैं तो सोच रहा था MBA करना है कि नहीं करना है, and this fellow has. But it has a flip side also, that there are 100 who start exploring and 2 find it, and the 98 remain lost. Perhaps that's what's playing out. So I agree. Like the depth that I find in the people who have depth at that age, I am also blown away. कि ये कैसे हो रहा है, right? I also wanted to ask another related question to your process. To tell me about your day. Like you said that the fact that I'm working 8 hours every day and I'm working on these projects, 2 a month, that's my creative muscle building which keeps me going. But is there something outside of that also? Like, is there a reading routine? Is there a khud ka writing routine? Is there a journaling routine? Is there I still go to open mics and do, if you ever did that, I don't know, but maybe for Tanmay, like, is there a just self-development, I read widely? Tell me a bit more about that also.
No, I have absolutely nothing. I used to have a reading habit when, I was at AIB because we had to take the train to go to work and back. So you'd get about 45 minutes up and down. Internet speeds were not so good, so you had to read. So I did have a lot of, I did a lot of reading. But now I have nothing. So basically the first half of my day is generally meetings, like new client meetings, new business meetings. I try and schedule all that the first half of my day because that's the time I'm just getting into the mode. So I don't mind doing meetings. And then the second half is when, then I, catch up with Deep, Puneet, Tanmay, whoever is like writing on something. I'd be like, I start getting insecure. I'm like, these guys are like now going to be writing, and I'm like, I'm just like going to.
I'm just a reviewer now.
So many times they get irritated. They're like, hey, Dave, it's cracked. I'm like, no, let's sit for 2 more hours. Like, let's do this. So then second half is like basically writing. And see, I'm naturally a very inquisitive person. So I read a lot of the internet. All right. So I have substituted my reading habit with reading on Twitter. Then YouTubing and going down rabbit holes. For example, watches is something now that I don't own any watch, but I'm just like, my YouTube recommendation is just watches. Right? So I find new areas to be very interested in, like for example, finance. Super interested in finance, go very deep into it, follow the stock market slowly. I'm not investing much, but I just follow the stock market slowly. I just find it amazing that a mood has a quantitative outcome in the financial market. For me, that is like my
great line.
That is for me like
that's a great line.
I don't know any other place where it gets quantified to a number, right? So for me that is also practice. Like okay, the war or something is breaking out somewhere. Is that going to impact what is happening over here? And why is it impacting? And I think there is a lot of lessons to be learned from there also on how people behave, right? So I find that very interesting. So I have these rabbit holes that I follow very deeply, which definitely helps me in my job also. For example, if I'm working on a fintech account or a finance account, I know as much as what the client would know about their business. And it's the same with most of the things. Like if there's a business we're working on, I naturally kind of get very deeply involved into it. Like, as time I was working on Meesho, for example, I was mind blown, like, back in Coorg, in the middle of the estate, when I went back, in the middle of the estate, there's a delivery that's come in. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, in the middle of the estate, like, who's delivering? And I realized Meesho is delivering. So, all the people working in the estate are getting their orders delivered on Meesho. And then, coincidentally, I started working with Meesho. Then I started reading up about Alibaba. Then I'm like, oh, okay, these guys are so interesting that they make money out of logistics more than e-commerce, right? So I love that. So then I go into the Alibaba hole, I go into the Jack Ma hole. So that is basically how I keep myself interested and collect knowledge, and sort of hopefully it kind of bleeds into the work that I do.
Another thing I find amazing, that actually great creative folks are great because they are able to gather very disparate data and then connect the dots in a unique way, which no one else had done in the past, right? Which also means that there's this distinction, at least in the business world, कि creative लोग होते हैं और business वाले लोग होते हैं. और ये दो अलग स्पीशीज़ होती हैं, राइट? कि क्रिएटिव लोगों को नंबर बिल्कुल नहीं चमकते, उनको नहीं चमकता कि PNL में क्या हो रहा है, एंड PNL वाले लोगों को क्रिएटिविटी का कुछ नहीं आता, राइट? बट when I listen to you, and this is my constant experience across many other high-level creative folks that I know, they have a very, very large brain. They can go and understand the crypto universe, which I've found, even today, I find it really tough to understand. They'll go be able to decode a full PNL and say, this is how this company is being run. They understand finance. They understand a lot of things fairly deeply. And then it all comes to the party somehow.
Yeah, I can give you an example. Like, in the team, for example, I think I'm not just saying this again. I think like, so for example, Puneet, all right, he's crazier than me about, these finance. Tanmay is mad. Like, he like AI, I'm trying to understand what's AI. He started a channel, gone so deep into it, and like built like almost 1 million followers.
Yeah.
So, and it's not just he's doing it for the trend, because when I speak to him, I'm like, oh my God, like, where did he find the time to go? Obviously, he's crazy, he works a lot. So, he goes crazy into those rabbit holes. The Deep from my team, like I was saying, Deep Joshi is, one of the best coffee brewers in Bombay, because he's gone deep into coffee. So, coming back to PNL, right? So, what I do generally is, when an inquiry comes in, if it's a listed company, I go to Screener, all right? And then I look at their shares, and I look at their PNL, and I see like, okay, they've come to us this quarter. What was the business they did corresponding in the previous quarter? Now, if that is the quarter that company does maximum business, I know that is their season. So they're coming for a big campaign, because everyone like has like one big quarter in any industry. So I know they're coming for them. And then I also realize, okay, how much they've spent possibly in marketing, and what is the budget they might have. So that helps me like understand. And then I will always know, like, a client, like if it's a publicly listed company, right? If you are bad, you get found out. For example, after the campaign comes out, wait for 4 months. The time the campaign was through, the reports are published, and then if the revenue has gone up considerably from the same corresponding quarter last year, you clearly know you have contributed in some way. But if it has gone down, it has not worked, right? So you understand these kind of things. Even when a startup comes in, it's very important to realize who the founders are. All right, like, and then sort of generally do like X company plus funding, and you see what they have raised, and then you understand, all right, do they have the appetite? Oh, now this is they've done the 0 to 5 journey. This is the 5 to 10 scale journey, right?
Yeah.
So I think these things, having a knowledge and understanding of these things, really help even in the business side of things for me. Generally all of us in the team are like, we're all engineers for some reason.
Yeah.
And I'm always interested in physics and math, so numbers don't scare me generally. Yeah.
Unbelievable, man. This is, I would have never thought that this is what's happening behind the scenes, but now that I hear it, it just makes obvious sense. And this is a big distinction between how you're doing it and perhaps how maybe someone in the old agency system was doing this. Maybe the guy at the top, someone knew the client's financials and they were looking into the numbers, but definitely wasn't filtering down to the creative guy. And the creative guy was told to be pigeonholed into तेरा काम है तो creative कर, right? There, if the creative guy says कि खुद से जाके कर ले तो कर ले, but no one is telling him that this is your job. Your job is to do what you're doing. Okay, I want to now also get some more behind the scenes on Moonshot, because I'm very intrigued by the new world agency model. Like, what will it emerge as? One thing we said was you'll go, like, agencies will become vertical sort of experts, that we are the viral Bakchod movie expert, but if you want like copy or like outdoor etc., social media, you go to someone else does that. 2 questions. One, how do you hire for Moonshot? How do you judge creative talent? I'm really intrigued by that, right? I don't think interviewing is a great process in general, but creative talent ke liye, I don't even know how to. So I'm very intrigued to know, how do you judge and hire for creative talent? And related question, we were talking off camera that you guys have kept it very small, right? It's just the 4 of you as the core team and then some freelance writers. Why not scale up?
Okay, I'll take the last question first. Scale up, I think I'd want to scale up, but I think all of us, like Tanmay, all of us, the whole team is very clear. It can't come at the cost of quality, right? It is impossible, like, for you to hire. It's not like if I triple my team size, I can take triple the amount of briefs, right? So I think that's a mistake that generally happens. So we generally are very slow with hiring. It is a process. So first what we generally do is we kind of do a copy test, and everything is paid for, obviously for the time that they put in. Then we look at the copy test. If the copy test is interesting, then we sort of work with the writers on existing live briefs. So we exactly know where the difference is at. Like, we are also attempting the same problem. Someone else also attempting the same problem. So it's very easy to gauge. And then we probably work with them on like 2-3 projects over a few months. And obviously everything is, again, like make sure it's all paid. And then if it's going good, we hire. So,
and how large is the team? So 4 of you in the core, and then
I think about 2 more. And then on every job, like the process is always ongoing where we are working with different writers, testing people out. So that is how we generally work.
Do you think that's the future, that it will be small agencies? The big agency world is like 500 people agency world is gone? Or?
No, I think it's going to be a mix, obviously at all times. There'll be people like us, and then there'll be people like some businesses. I think like social media agencies, you need to have like 100 people servicing 20 different accounts, because at any point your last 20% of the accounts are always changing. So you can't depend on just 1 or 2 accounts, especially if you're in a retainer model. So then you need to have that kind of scale to de-risk yourself from losing retainers. But I think everyone's going to exist. All models have its pros and cons. It's also a personal choice between all of us that, I don't know, maybe we look at this as a, like, it's a game still for us. It's not so much a business. So, we still like want to work on everything. So that also becomes
you don't want to become managers.
Yes, we still like love working. So we like to work. We love to work. We still want to personally sit and write and do everything ourselves. So I think that becomes a little bit of a bottleneck, but that we don't care about because we're having a lot of fun doing it. So that helps. But like hiring creative people, I feel one important thing is to let go of bias in terms of, it could be ideological bias. That's one thing I've always learned. I mean, I've learned a lot, that ideological bias that, someone is right-leaning, someone is left-leaning, someone's supporting a war somewhere, someone's against a war somewhere. Because with creative people, all these things can become a point of contention and a reason to judge. Right? So you cannot judge based on anyone's language. Some people I've seen are damn good at English, but the script is bad. Right? The script is written well, but the idea is bad. So I think those are things that you need to train yourself to sort of not see. But also I think one thing I've realized is you have to make room for mavericks. You cannot expect someone to work with you for 10 years and then if they don't want to manage, if you have to be able to break rules. You cannot, like, for example, I can't be like, I want everyone to be punctual. Or like, no, some person is not punctual, but he's fucking damn good at what he does. So okay, throw punctuality out of the window for them.
Only if your work is like one extreme end, then I will break rules. I think that makes sense.
So I'm gonna accidentally forgot to attend an important client meeting. It's bad, it's wrong, but it has happened once now. But they're damn good. Like, can you make a room for that allowance? I mean, maybe you can.
I would never do that for above average though.
Yes, definitely. I'm talking about you need to be like top 0.01% and you have to bring value to the business in other ways. Then you can sort of let go of these other rules.
Do you also have an ecosystem of directors, GOPs, etc. that you usually work with?
I mean, most of our work is being directed by just 2 people. One is Ayappa and the other is Rahul Dravid. So we generally work with only these 2 directors of late. One is, I mean, like Ayappa, most of you would know he's probably the best Indian ad filmmaker in the last 20 years. All right. And he's the only one who's managed to stay at the top for 20 years. And the work is spectacular. So it becomes very easy. Like all the cred work that you've seen, for example, is Ayappa. And so many times, like for example, a Ravi Shastri film, I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah, of course I have.
Yeah, so it was a good script. All right, but when we saw the film, when we saw the film, like it was magic, right?
Elevated to another level, yeah.
So, the directors take it to the next level. So we work with like Rahul, for example.
Yeah.
He's done a lot of our work as well, right? From Firebolt, Shark Tank, like most recently Dr. Agarwal's, like all these things. So we work with these two people a lot because we love working with them, and so we keep it constant over there.
And how do you? I'm asking you all of these questions also to get a lot of hopefully startup founders watch this. What's a good brief and a good client for you?
Interesting. A good brief is a clear brief which doesn't change, which ideally is a problem that you want to solve with communication. Do you want to say that my protein bar has the cleanest protein in it?
Yeah.
Do you want to say it has the maximum protein in it?
Yeah.
Do you want to say it's the cleanest protein at the cheapest cost?
Yeah.
I mean, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Or you generally want to say there is a very clear philosophical line, that what we sell is what we eat, like something like that, right? Like if there's a very clear philosophy that is in one line, that is very helpful. And good client is, it's very difficult to be a good client.
which is English for all clients are bad.
No. It is, I understand it's the craziness, right? Because you are literally rolling out. You're commissioning, all right? You're commissioning. It's your money that you're commissioning to us, saying that here, go do this for us.
Yeah.
So when you're putting your money on the line, because a client is the only person who's putting their money on the line.
Yeah.
We are putting our time, all right? And if it goes bad, we are getting paid for the time.
Yeah.
But if it goes bad for the client, they're losing money and they're losing their time.
Yeah.
Right. So that is so I feel generally good clients would trust us a lot more, trust agencies a lot more.
Yeah.
But for you to get that trust, you need to earn it in the first place.
Yeah.
Not just by the fact that you've done good work in the past. You can't walk into the room and earn that person's trust. I think it would take like maybe one campaign with them. I think the first campaign generally with new clients are found can be difficult. But once you get through that first campaign, which is difficult because everyone's trying to understand what the limits are and how much you can push, how much you can push back. And then I think I have always seen the second campaign gets better.
And on your point of skin in the game that I have to just lose my time, but that guy loses his money if I do a bad job.
Yeah.
Does the equity model work for agencies also?
See, it depends from agency to agency and where you are financially in your life, right? Like if you hit your fire number and then you're just playing for chances and outcomes, then of course the equity model works. But my personal opinion is that I am not a full-time venture capitalist, and I am betting on the bets that are coming to me, right? I'm not going out in the market and seeking bets. So now, I'm limited over there for deal flow. And then if I'm betting on, it's a 1 in 10 opportunity, right?
Is it also that while yes, your ad campaign will be an input into the company doing well, it will be 1 or 20 inputs.
Yes.
So if you don't end up doing well for 5 other reasons, then should I be taking all the risk or not is also a question. It's just that if I tell you from the other side, especially from a startup which is usually always resource constrained, the cost of great creative talent on my brief is so high that the risk of it not going well is just too high. It's just and hence, which I guess is a good barrier also, and hence one is happier doing above average work with below average cost than taking the risk of having an outlier work, but the cost being an outlier is a given. कि ये तो पक्का ही जाने वाला है फिर उसका and which is why maybe the equity model works, but it's a bet and you're not in the VC business, you're in the agency business.
I'd rather make money out of this and then invest separately than...
Do you angel invest?
I mean, I have like a few bets here and there which I place.
Have you learned that it's a way to burn money and...
Actually, yeah, I mean, I understand I'm not technically burnt, but I do understand why it is not sustainable in the long run and it's so illiquid that I'd rather just put money in Nifty 50 and be fine with it.
Last question from me. From your vantage point, where in the marketing stack, we started with saying what is marketing, right? And we said that it is demand generation, whatever leads to demand generation. And you work in the specific arena of ad film creation to generate demand. But that itself is an outcome of a long process, a strategic process that became a marketing objective, that became a communication objective, that became an ad brief that came to you and went out. And there are 20 other things that companies need to do. In your experience, what outside of ads that you made, what was the differentiator in the people who really broke out versus those who didn't?
You mean from the client side?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, what a question. I think the common trait is all of them were definitely risk takers. All right. We used to sort of placing, doubling down on their instincts and not doubting their instincts. I believe, say, Boldcare is also a good example.
Yeah.
Where we did the, Ranveer and Johnny Singh's campaign.
Yeah.
Which they decided that, okay, we'll just put everything on the idea and let us not worry about the media. If the idea is good, it is going to cover all media costs. It will go viral. It's like the bet was it has to go organically viral, right. Which for a company is a very big bet to place, right? Yeah, and I mean, those guys were ballsy enough to do that.
It flies in the face of all the media rules that anyone will teach you. Usually it is, you're spending $10 on making the film, you should have $90 sitting for running the film on media, because virality cannot be hacked. And you cannot be having all your eggs in the virality bucket कि viral दी जाएगी, नहीं तो मेरे पास पैसे नहीं है इसमें मीडिया डालने के. So क्योंकि मैंने सारा पैसा फिल्म बनाने में खर्च दिया है, and that number itself would be a very large component of their balance sheet. Like the money in bank का बहुत बड़ा component होएगा वो. So you're saying that level of mad risk taking is...
Yeah, at some point you have to take a big risk in your life, right? You can't play safe in a startup throughout and then expect to have like a high reward outcome. Which, say for example, Boldcare, it's just crazy. That risk they took, and then boom, it just completely paid off for them.
Yeah,
I feel that I see that as definitely one of, and the other thing is it's weird, but most of the founders or companies that have gotten successful, I want to have beer with those founders. It is generally always. Whoever it is, I've always noticed that they're very interesting people. It's very rare that you find a dull person who has really broken through.
Yeah.
It is possible that it could happen because maybe the idea that they had was so clutter breaking that it didn't need anything. That's the force of that idea was enough for everything to be solved.
Yeah.
But that is a one in a Mark Zuckerberg probably moment, right?
Yeah.
You don't get those kind of outcomes every day with a lot of people. But I feel they're always very interesting people. And for some strange reason, all of them have a lot of strong opinions on Twitter and on LinkedIn, which again is an extension of the fact that, they're willing to stake their reputations out there by having a voice. Which again shows you that they're high risk, high reward people, right? Like if you see, for example, Kunal from Cred, right?
Yeah.
Kunal's always tweeting and putting up posts, and you see so many people are also hating on him.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter because for him, he's not playing these small games, right?
Yeah.
But he's I'm going to have my voice out there. It doesn't matter what others are saying, but it is it's still I look at it as they're building it's still a high risk business because if you are very vocal out there, tomorrow if something goes wrong, the mob will come for you harder. So tomorrow if IBM, for example, fucks up, who will you go after in IBM? It's so big, right? You'll maximum have some 10 tweets on IBM. You will not go after the CEO. But with founders, you are a direct vector of attack. So I think those are a few things I've always seen.
Funnily, McKinsey has this had coined the airport test that when they're hiring consultants, one of the questions they're supposed to think of when they're interviewing is, if you were stuck with this guy at the airport for 3 hours, would that be a happy situation or not? It's the equivalent of the beer test that you said. And the way I think about it, see, very, very simplistically put, creating a company is about figuring out demand and figuring out supply, right? And these two never move hand in hand, right? So, and usually the cold start problem is first figure out demand. Why will anyone come to you, right? And advertising, marketing plays a big role. It's the perhaps the biggest leverage point. If one 30-seconder fill can change your fortunes, like Boldcare, you were telling me, went 10x the minute it happened and then fell back only to 5x. That's like huge leverage. That demand ka chakka gives you the air cover that you need to build the supply. Right? You can make mistakes at the back end. You can have a factory which didn't produce properly. You can have a finance system that was broken. You can have a supply chain that wasn't delivering in time. All of that inefficiency will get covered up because the demand air cover that came was so high that it gave you time to ramp this up. And hence, at every stage actually, I feel what no one tells any entrepreneur who's starting off is, I think it was Rahul Dravid, who is the Sequoia founder, who had this articulation that companies have multiple founding moments. They don't have one founding moment. There comes a time every 5-6 years where you have to again bet it all and get another air cover. Because you're just fighting against so many variables कि इतना कुछ इकट्ठे संभाल के बड़ा कोई भी नहीं सकता. तो एक चीज़ पे छक्का मारो, उससे इतना एयर कवर मिलता है कि बाकी सारी चीज़ें समेटो, एंड देन फिर से एक चीज़ पे छक्का मारो, एंड वो छक्का मारने के लिए you have to take a large risk. It can be large risks at the back end also. You might figure out a business model or a financial model which is a large risk, which is very debt heavy, but it allows you to do something which your competitors aren't doing. And I think that is where folks like you, Moonshot, is really helping startups, that you're giving them that leverage, which is the difference between them dying by 1,000 cuts because so many things are going wrong. But this one thing went so right that it gave me lifeline for 3-4 years. So I think that's, in my head, that's the job that you have actually. Hopefully. So awesome. On that note, I am done with questions. If you have anything that you want to talk about, this is not just like an interview, anything that this part, please ask. Otherwise, we have a section that the team has where they show us an ad, which even I have not seen, and then we react to, what was the market you're smoking.
I think we've spoken about this, but it'll be interesting, if people listen to it and also sort of tell us in the comments, like, when you're building a brand like you have, which is so high on value, right? Like, which is the value of being truthful at all points.
Yeah.
And that is a value that kind of sucked me in to the product as well, right? Like I've told you, it's the only probably packaged food that I'd be comfortable with my son having. So, when you sort of build yourself up to such high truth value system, the risk is very heavy in terms of small things going wrong. So how do you kind of deal with that?
So 2 parts to the answer. First up, without, exactly like advertising, without doing something extreme, without pulling the pendulum to an extreme end, you will not get noticed. So you will not even get started, right? So purely from a strategic lens also, you need to have a promise. So many, investors would ask me that so many people are doing clean label. I'm like, the difference between 99% clean label and 100% clean label is not 1%, it is infinite. Because I have pulled it to the other extreme. That's an insane promise, which is so scary to make that no one will make it and consumers notice the difference. And the second part is, we keep iterating it internally that we are not the perfect. We are the whole truth, right? And we are human. Even when we make mistakes, we will make mistakes because we are human. Even when we make mistakes, we'll be the whole truth about it. We will come out, we will not be that brand. The problem that consumers have with brands is when they become big, they become faceless, nameless robots who are trying to be holier than thou and perfect. And you don't, every PR crisis is, rebutted with a PR note saying we did all the tests that we could.
Which is written by ChatGPT.
Exactly. Nowadays, yes. We'll just, like it happened in the past, we've made mistakes. Consumers have only, and what's been amazing, we were always taught back in the big company ecosystem that consumers aren't that smart. And consumers are usually, cynical. When something goes wrong, people will come after you. I was always told that whole truth, you're calling yourself the whole truth. Who even knows what the truth is? You're putting yourself on such a pedestal, one mistake and you'll be gone. And we made mistakes. And we've always owned up to them, and we've seen so much love. Like the love from the community triples every time we come in, own up to our mistake and do better and, publicly improve. So yeah, my learning has been that you have to pull it to an extreme, and then no one can ever doubt whether your intention was bad, right? That's the make or break. They can say that your action was wrong, but if my intent is ever seen to be bad, then I'm dead. And that I'm backing myself on, because my intent is not bad. Like, I am trying to build a 100% honest food company which I could feed to my kids, which I'm very happy that everyone... And you find me here, you find me in a VC room, you find me in my town hall, you find me anywhere, I'll say the same thing, because that is the truth that I'm trying to build. So that I was willing to back myself to the hill. That's why I'm the face of the brand also. That this one I'm going to back to the hill, because this I know inside that I'm not putting up a facade. How will you find a hole in my intent when there is none? Right? So that's the bet. Let's see.
The other thing, like I like asking founders is, for me, the best thing that happened to me is none of my dreams came true. Because if...
then you find out.
if my dream had, like if as an 18-year-old, if my dream had come true, I would be an engineer in a in some big company today. Yeah. And no swap on engineers.
Yeah.
Great job. I have friends who are engineers who are like doing very well, but I would have been unhappy because I don't fit like an engineering job. So tell me, like for me, what is fascinating is when you started the company.
Yeah.
All right. Honestly, tell me 4 years from then, which is where we are right now, 5 years.
Yeah.
You would have had, okay, this is what this brand would become, and this is where I will be.
Yeah.
And how much has the variance been?
It is, I don't know, 1,000% on the positive side. Like I could not have, like in my...
Where did you imagine? Like what is the best case scenario playing out in your head in 2019?
I actually, like you could see my B plan from that time. We would be a 100 crore company. So that's a number, and we are 3x of that. And the kind of brand love that we've gotten to was unfathomable to me. Right?
So you didn't imagine this much love?
This much love, this much depth and width of love for the brand, this much acceptance for what is rightly a fairly complex promise. It's like Whole Truth is layered, right? Like the brand is built as, in copywriting, we first write the truth line, because what are we the opposite of? We are not the opposite of lies. We are the opposite of half truths. Right? So we first write the truth line, that the truth is this bar has 0 fat. And then we mark it up. We then write the whole truth line. The truth becomes the whole truth, and 0 gets cut off. And then fats gets a markup saying it does have fats, but only good fats from coconuts and nothing else, right? So the insight was that the whole truth is always, you have to unpeel one more layer of the onion to get to the whole truth, and marketeers just tell you the upper ka nice layer, that this is no added sugar is true. You can't take me to jail because it is true. But the whole truth is, तुमने चीनी हटा के maltodextrin डाला, which is also sugar, but FSSAI rules allow you to call it not a sugar, right? So the whole truth is complex. So I had this doubt कि पता नहीं इतना complex को मैं simplify करके कर पाऊंगा कि नहीं, लोगों को चमकेगा कि नहीं. I am being super amazed by how well it has happened, and hence I have far exceeded whatever little dream I had, and hence for the longest time, not today, for the last 2-3 years, my constant feeling is a combination of gratitude and responsibility that ab kuch to ho gaya hai. There is some, X factor magic that has happened. Now, bloody keep your head down and work. Rarely do people get this chance of, doing something where their ikigai is like right at the center and it's working. Right? I see so many founders around me who are working 2x of what I am, but not getting the results, right? And somehow, I think it's a stupid person who will be like, ये सब कुछ मेरी वजह से हुआ है. There is definitely some hand of God / randomness, whatever you believe in, that's at play. And hence now, forget the dream. It is, I feel, a sense of big responsibility that something very good has happened. Now you better not screw it up, and you better leave the world a better place than you found it. Otherwise, there is no worse person, because so many people are moving around without privilege, and they are looking at you saying, Hakkar, you got the privilege, you got the chance. We are watching you, how, like, that's the narrative in my head. We are watching you, what are you going to do with it, right? Don't sit around in a corner and cry that this is tough and all. Like, now you bloody do it, right? That's my zone now.
But like, do you has all this generally in life made you more self-confident? Like this success, does it feel like, do you feel a little more spring in your step when you walk?
I am, in general, it wouldn't come across that way because I'm also a showman. So I know how to do this when the camera is on. But in general, I'm an underconfident person. In fact, the more success I get, the more I worry that the law of averages is about to catch up. And next time तो अब नहीं होगा. Like, how is it that मैं next time भी कुछ लिखूंगा और वो भी अच्छा होएगा? How is it मैं next time भी कुछ बोलूंगा और वो भी अच्छा होएगा? नहीं होएगा. I'm going to screw up. The next step is the last one for me. So, many people ask me कि, in fact, many well-wishers tell me that overconfident मत हो जाइए. Don't let it go to your head. Like, this one thing you don't have to worry about because actually with more success, पता नहीं वो middle class upbringing है या क्या है, insecurity है, but no.
Yeah, I think all like whoever, most of the founders that I've interacted with, really, I think they have the same answer. That they're scared that someone's going to catch them out or like, you know.
Imposter syndrome hai, and it's just like when such a long string of good things which has happened to us happens, you really worry that कैसे हो सकता है sir? The something will go wrong at some point of time, and hence my new definition of courage. I would say, in all humility, I think this is courage. That I actually believe it's not going to go well from here on, and yet I continue. It's not that I'm now like everything I touch is gold, man. Whatever I do, like I don't know who that person is. Like I am so far away from it. It's not funny. Yeah.
Nice. Interesting. Cool.
So this section is the team has chosen one or two pieces of advertising. I have not seen it. You also obviously not seen it, and we'll see it for the first time. And our job is to decode what the brief was and then how was it interpreted. Okay?
देख लो बच्चे।
Nobody said, bro. Yeah.
अरे ये बात मिला ना बाबा। बाबा ये क्या है बाबा? बाबा इतना तो टैक्सी में आने का भाड़ा लग जाता है बाबा। हाँ भाग गए भाई। बाबा मैंने किसी के पास। इससे ये तो ना बात है देखिए। हाँ कह रहे हाँ। क्यों बाबा बड़ा भी तो किसी को बड़ा ये बोल। भाई दवाई दे देना इनको। सिर्फ एक टपकती बूंद आपकी किस्मत बदल सकती है। घर में रखिए MC हमेशा।
This is like
Piyush Pandey magic.
Unbelievable.
Piyush Pandey magic, and I think must be definitely looks like Piyush Pandey's work.
I don't know.
And I think it must be directed by Prasoon Pandey. I hope I'm not wrong.
We'll find out. I don't know, and yeah, but sounds.
Yeah.
This is a classic.
Yeah, I mean it's for me the first thing is what a brilliant client. Like if we presented this today, it'd be, oh, you're showing death in an ad. Oh, it is dark, it is morbid, and that person dies in the background. And there's so many reasons to bomb this ad. Right? Like in the first go.
Yeah.
And as a creative person, like, I mean, this is a genius idea. I hope some idea like this hits me. But if it had, I would have self-regulated in my head saying that, okay, let's go to the meeting with another safe idea. Because this is not going to happen.
And no product shot, no product window, no how this works, no how this seal is better than those 4 other seals because it has this technology.
Yeah.
None of that.
None of
just एक टपकती हुई बूंद क्या कर सकती है? Exaggerated to an insane level. I can't imagine that this came out of a brief. Like this feels like something कि किसी creative director को maybe पीयूष को किसी को चमका and उसने जाके client को बोला कि यार ये ad तेरे लिए बनानी है और
Possible, I feel that it could have been like the brief wouldn't have been so narrowed down.
Yeah.
It would have been like, this prevents leakage or something like that. And then you sit on it and then
like I
maybe.
I don't recall other MCL advertising, but Mota Moti I recall that like people knew of MCL. MCL was a fairly well-known brand. So MCL करता क्या है ये तो could not have been the brief, right? It could have been that MCL is so good that not even one drop will escape. Like that, or the brief might have been show that MCL का जो seal होता है, that's like 100%. Like then there is no leakage, there is nothing else, and that might have gone from कि एक भी बूंद नहीं टपकेगी, अरे एक भी बूंद नहीं टपकेगी तो क्या हो गया, ओ क्या क्या हो सकता है अगर एक भी बूंद ना टपके, and then working backwards from there is it's insane.
Also, sometimes I feel maybe the writer had this idea independently, and then the beautiful thing is if a brief lands and then you already had like this idea saying, hey, this conflict in this situation would be very, very funny. And then you're like, oh, okay, this brief is coming. It happens sometimes where when you're brainstorming on something else, you get some other idea. Or if you're like in some setting in a family function or something and you see something funny happening, and then you immediately make a note of it, right, in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
And then you're like, yeah, someday this would be a good funny ad. And then you get the brief and it's a beautiful. Can we just check if it is Piyush Pandey?
It must be क्योंकि ये Pidilite है, right?
Yeah.
And Fevicol ads have been them only, right?
Yeah, it's all Piyush and Prasoon. I mean, the thing is, it is. I think this is Piyush Pandey. That's a genius of Piyush's work, right?
Yeah.
That, if this ad came out today, it'd go viral.
Yeah, it's like
He's done some insane ads. There's one ad for Hindu which he did, which is
the newspaper.
Yeah, Hindu newspaper. I think it is one of the first viral ads because I remember it going viral on Facebook. All right, it is like behave yourself. India is watching. Oh, yeah. It's like this class teacher goes in and says, "Let's have a parliamentary debate in class," and everyone starts throwing stuff. And it's very funny. Again, directed by Prasoon Pandey, and I think it'll go further. I mean, that's why Piyush is a genius, right? Like I think this one is timeless.
Insane.
The same copy you run it today, you can't guess which year this came out.
Right? Because as it's shot in a gated way, and it's unbelievable.
Brilliant.
Okay, I have nothing else to say on this one. We'll move on to the next one. This is Suicide.
Wait. There's something I want to tell you. -2.
Even I have something to tell you.
Huh?
Lasting relationships are based on transparency, like what Geojit BNB Paribas shares with 4.5 lakh customers. Benefit from transparency.
So good.
Amazing.
This classic finance ad, I don't think you're allowed to say that you get great returns from your investment. That's why finance ads are a little difficult to do because you cannot say you become wealthy, you can't say you become rich, you can't promise returns. So you have to find these patli gali ways of talking about trust or talking about like you will basically get rich without getting rich. So I think it's such a fascinating ad.
I also think amazing ad, and this one I could imagine the brief on. I don't know if my big question is did the product deliver on it, but the insight must have been that when I interact with banks, even today, going to a bank branch is a stress point because it feels like I will enter a black box.
Correct.
And one arzi will go.
Entering a real life IVR.
हाँ, exactly. I have no clue कि अंदर क्या चलेगा. मैं आधा घंटा बैठा हूँ बाहर, पता नहीं क्या होगा. So for someone to come and say, we are a transparent bank, that you will see the inner workings of what's happening. You will never be left in the dark. Once you put in an application, what is happening inside, etc. I really would love to see, seems like an old ad, that what did they do at the product level? Because this is a classic case of, if ye dikha ke you draw me in, and then I get the same experience at a product level, then the trust is broken forever because you overpromised and underdelivered. But the brief seems very clear here that that transparency builds trust. Banking is a game of trust. So, and we have done something because of which transparency is high. So tell people that we know that you value transparency and you will get that in this bank. And then the creative leap being that, transparency builds trust in any relationship, via banking relationship. And then the playing on the, the stereotypes, not stereotype, but it's the truth. Ki like, in a arranged marriage setup or in a first date, you're always trying to impress each other. No one tells each other's. And this is also a timeless thing.
Because insight is so true, right? It cuts through arranged marriage dates to Bumble dates. It's the same
profile pic और real person में और मतलब bio और real person में ज़मीन आसमान का फर्क होता है. But someone which is actually I unfortunately or fortunately got married before any of these platforms came in, but seems like there's a marketing angle here too, like someone who makes a super real profile or is super real upfront would cut through the clutter of everyone looking perfect and having a guitar and a dog and stuff. But awesome.
Yeah, but I think for me what is interesting here is when you look at the brief, there's a bank, it's about investment with trust and transparency. Usually when you put all this together, you do something very serious philosophical. Right? Like you do something with like black and white imagery, like, a father and like a son and grandfather and, centuries of trust. Like, that is the mood. Like, when you put all these keywords together as a brief. Yeah. But it's so brave that they said, okay, we'll talk about all these things, but, the most different way and the most non-banking language, grammar, non-banking visual grammar, banking film possible. Yeah. And I think that is fascinating.
You're right, and both in this ad and in the previous one that we saw, till the end, you didn't know what category of product is being sold. वो जूते की ad भी हो सकती थी, वो चश्मे की ad भी हो सकती थी, कुछ भी हो सकता था. I had no clue. Like the first that Pidilite MCL one could have been a pen का ad also, right? Like which seems to be a device. And we were discussing early on that whether that device can be deployed today also when attention spans are lower. I would argue that
100%.
Great storytelling like this, which keeps me hooked. I want to know the reveal. कि साला चल क्या रहा है? Like end में क्या होने वाला है यहाँ पे? Right?
And also, did you notice something? The minute the brand came in, we shut the laptop. But we will remember this as much as if we had seen the whole product window.
Yes.
What it was.
Yes.
Right? Like if if it was a boring ad and the product window came right in the beginning, we might have not paid attention to it, but like the storytelling is so good. We saw the logo, slight voiceover, and we shut the ad, and now we know this BNB Paribas is about trust, transparency, no pretension. You come in, we are friendly. Like that's all that's established without even looking at a product window. So that is the genius of great storytelling.
And there is, which also I think one of the coups of advertising is intuitively viewers feel that जिस तरह की ad बनाई उस तरह के लोग होंगे. You are actually judging the character of the entire organization by the type of ad that they make, right? So if a piece of advertising speaks to you, you've actually developed a positive disposition towards that organization. Even if you don't remember उनका promise क्या था, वो transparency थी या क्या था, वो ad इतनी बकचोद बनी, बकचोद तरह के लोग लग रहे हैं, ये मेरे तरह के लोग लग रहे हैं मेरे को. You suddenly have that disposition towards, which might not be true, right? It might just be the marketing department. The rest of the company might be nothing like the ad that got made, but you are now positively disposed towards.
Like, have you seen the Geico ads, I'm sure, right? In the US, 15% or more. As a famous, really brand built on basically funny advertising, Geico. And all these days I was like, oh, Geico, cool name. I genuinely thought, because it sounds like a quirky name, Geico, and it's got like one a brand ambassador, which is like an animated character, and the ads are very funny. So I was like, oh, okay, Geico is like a cool name they came up with. Then I was listening to this, there's a podcast series called Acquired, where, it was on Deep Dive on Berkshire Hathaway. And I realized Geico is a company that Warren Buffett bought many years ago, and its full form is Government Employees Insurance Corporation. Okay. So that is the power of advertising.
Advertising.
And if I had gone to the US and then I had to get like a car insurance, I know it's like 15% or less because whatever.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, I want Geico, it's a cool company. But the full form is Government Employees Insurance Corporation.
That's also the reason why KFC does not call itself Kentucky Fried Chicken in India. Because they sell veg stuff and they don't want Indians to know कि मेरे नाम में chicken है. They will always say KFC. आपको वो भी full form लिखा हुआ दिखेगा ही नहीं कहीं पे. मतलब कहीं.
I thought because of like why will like Kentucky has no relevance in India.
Kentucky has no relevance. So upside कुछ नहीं है कि Kentucky से कुछ कुछ जैसे पेरिस का फैशन ब्रांड है तो आपको कुछ ओरिजिन स्टोरी है. बट Kentucky से हमारे को चमकता नहीं है. लेकिन चिकन से डाउन साइड है कि यहाँ तो सिर्फ चिकन.
And you're fighting McDonald's, which is neutral, name neutral.
एंड तुम वेज बेच रहे हो बट बाहर से देख के मेरे को लगा सिर्फ चिकन ही मिलने वाला है. तो आधे लोग तो आएंगे नहीं क्योंकि इंडिया आधा वेजिटेरियन है. सो दैट्स इट.
Interesting.
ऑसम. चलो दैट इज इट. वी आर डन.